Now, I admit, I'm going to struggle with this one a little bit here because it involves DACA, but it's not the crystal clear situation that we are used to. I mean, DACA, when we think about it, is about rewarding people for violating U.S. immigration laws. And I'm very much against that because it provides incentives for more people to violate the law because they believe that they will be rewarded for doing so. Now, DACA recipients, were people who were brought over here as children, but still giving them the ability to stay and work in the United States and build a life, and who would one day have kids of their own that would illegitimately be given U.S. citizenship, is something that we need to be addressing here. But there is a twist here, and I'll get to that twist in just a moment. So I have been crystal clear in my online statements that when it comes to DACA, we shouldn't hold it against the kids that their parents brought them over here. But the fact that they stayed after they became adults, that was their decision. And that upon becoming adults, that they should have gone back to their home country and applied for legal entry into the United States. Because to keep rewarding people for coming over is wrong. And when I talk about how one day DACA recipients will have kids of their own and become illegitimately declared as citizens, well, that's because of the government having changed how they view the Constitution in deciding natural-born citizens, because there's always two qualifications to be a born citizen of the United States. But under the Democrats, they basically ignored half of the requirements to be born a United States citizen and just say that anybody born within our borders is a United States citizen, whether the parents were here legally or illegally. And that is a complete intentional misread of the Constitution, right? Because it also requires in the Constitution that the person being born is born with their allegiance owed to the United States, meaning that their parents were citizens of the United States or permanent residents at the very least of the United States. And by definition, illegal immigrants are not permanent residents. So where do we get to the moral conundrum in the current 2020 situation? And that comes from this. Thousands of DACA healthcare workers fight coronavirus and worry about their fate. So yes, because immigration law has been ignored and because DACA, which is a completely illegal and unconstitutional program, has been allowed to go on for so long, illegal immigrants have been allowed to go through our education system, take out student loans, which means if we deport them, then we have to deal with the fact that there are all the student loans that the taxpayers would be on the hook for, which I do have a solution for that, which would be send them back home and they're not allowed to come back until they pay off the student loans. Or if they come back legally and they fail to be able to pay the student loans, they're booted right back out. That would be my solution to that particular issue. But we are where we are. They went through college and some of them got medical degrees. And now they're on the front lines of the coronavirus. And so now this is where we get into the moral conundrum, because this is almost like the situation where, they were brought to the country illegally. They were raised because DACA allowed them to, illegitimately work in the United States. They got into the military. Now they service the country and fought for this country. What do we do? Are we going to kick them aside? So maybe we start thinking about, hey, if they actually did something that provided value and saved American lives, they proved their worthiness to remain within the United States, rather than, the typical view of them being a bunch of entitled brats that believe that their very existence entitles them to be here and the laws be damned. They're above the law. But now we got to start thinking about the medical field and how it relates to the current pandemic and the current crisis, because now by going to work and providing medical service, they are risking their lives. And also we have the issue here where we have known for years that, we're losing doctors and nurses because not as many people are graduating from medical school to replace the doctors and nurses that are retiring. So we have known shortages in our healthcare system, and we're dealing with a global pandemic. So what do? Creates one of those moral conundrums. And we could talk about, expanding legal immigration, but, one, due to the current economic crisis, we don't want to do that at the moment. We want to make sure that we have jobs available for American citizens before we start bringing in more people. But through legal immigration, that's not a guarantee that they are going to go into the medical field. And when we take a look at this, with DACA recipients working in the medical field, they've already gone through medical school, passed, and are working in the field, versus bringing somebody in, not knowing if they can cut it, and trying to figure out what to do with it if they flunk out of medical school. So I keep having this problem where I'm going back and forth, and this is not an easy issue where I don't want to reward them for the violation of the law and thinking they're exceptional, that they're above the law, and that the rules do not apply to them. And mixing that with, we have needs for medical care providers. We're on the hook for the student loans if we boot them out, and they are risking their lives at this particular point in time. So, these moral conundrums would not have happened if we were enforcing immigration laws from the beginning. And this is why the Democrats did everything they could to undermine the laws, because as time goes on, doing what was right from the very beginning starts to become morally murky, starts to become less black and white and more gray, more conundrums. And that's where the left likes it. Because as long as they can make it, as gray as possible, then it creates an instance of inaction as people try to debate back and forth, not just, the left versus the right, but within the right, how to best handle the situation. Do we do it blanket? Do we take it case by case? And if we do it case by case, how long is it going to be to sift through all the DACA recipients right now, given how long illegal immigration has been going on? And so if I were to go through and I were to take a look at this, as far as DACA recipients go, because it has become a gray area, I would say, okay, once DACA ends, and the Supreme Court is going to end it, they're going to have no choice but to end it when they finally do issue a decision. And that decision is going to be delayed because of the current pandemic. But when they do finally issue a decision on this, I'm going to say that for the vast majority, send them back home, deport them back to their home country. We got to take care of our own citizens first before we care about foreign nationals. But for those that served in the military and fought, against terrorism, or fought, to keep America safe, and those who have served in our medical field, especially during this time, I would say I'm fine with them being allowed to stay. I would not grant them citizenship or the right to vote. And because I really want to limit the reward that they'll get for serving in the military or serving in our medical field, I understand we need people in our medical field. I understand they put their lives on the line. So being able to stay as a permanent legal resident, I'm fine with. And then at that point, when they have kids, their kids will become citizens, and so yes, it still provides a bit of a reward, but I don't think we should reward them with the ability to vote when doing so came from them violating the law. I don't think they should have a right to vote. And that's where I'm standing on this particular issue at this time. I know there's going to be some of you that are going to disagree with this. Some of you are going to say, blanket, no. I don't care if they served in the military. I don't care if they served in our healthcare field, saving American lives during a pandemic. They were here illegally. We're going to toss them out with the rest. Some of you are going to be on the flip side and go, let's just give them all blanket immunity, a pathway to citizenship, but then we'll enforce our immigration laws. To which I would reply, yeah, that didn't work when we already tried that once. We did that once, and then the Democrats continued to undermine our immigration laws, hoping that that would lead to us having to do it again. And some of you are going to be saying, okay, but for those who stay, yes, they should have a right to vote. And so everyone's going to have a bit of difference here. And I understand I'm not looking for a consensus on this topic. I'm just coming out here letting you know that because we haven't been enforcing our immigration laws and because of the things that have gone on, this issue becomes grayer and grayer in order to make it a moral conundrum. That way, and the Democrats doing that, they can encourage inaction, apathy, being like, yeah, what are you going to do? But we're going to have to actually deal with this and address this. We're going to have to make a clear decision and enforce the laws, enforce the rules, and make it evenly applied across the field. Otherwise, we'll get what the Democrats are ultimately looking for: open borders, where foreign nationals and foreign governments can send people across our borders every election year, register them to vote, and decide our elected representatives, who, by the way, based off of what we currently see from the Democrats, are not interested in the best interest of the American citizens. No, they're pandering to illegal immigrants, to foreign nationals, because they're hoping to get their vote one day. They're hoping that they will be able to pass the ability for illegal immigrants to vote, which in some areas they can in local elections. But they're going to pander and sell out America because guess what? America only has 330-some million people. There are several billion other people around the world. And if they can capture the votes of those other billions of people, well, then they got a situation where the voters don't choose the representatives choose the voters, and the Democrats will be able to dominate government, and you can say goodbye to any rights, freedoms, and liberties that we currently have come to love and enjoy.